Alright, Jake, I'm filming.
So guys, I'm in the hospital. I had an accident, broke my back.
I get my brain scanned at the hospital to see what's going on. Tell me how.
Oh yeah, bro, I got a new big hole right there.
You've been fighting.
Bro, I got a big hole in my brain, bro.
Oh my
Big ass hole right here.
I told you I feel stupider.
When word leaked out that Jake Paul had canceled his much-anticipated and contentious bout with Mike Tyson, the boxing world fell apart. Only a few days have passed since a video that shocked the combat sports community became viral on the internet. The video shows Paul and Tyson engaging in a sparring match that swiftly descended into chaos. Paul seemed overpowered and unable to protect himself as Tyson, who was much older, rained down devastating blows on him. Paul is seen in the final moments of the clip, slumped against the ropes, his face a mask of anguish and shame. Following the battle, rumors started to circulate. Was this a manufactured media stunt to get people interested in the bout? Or was Tyson really using his raw power to give Paul a harsh wake-up call? But Jake Paul provided an alternative viewpoint in a biting social media post. He spoke candidly about the event. What you witnessed in that video was an attack, not a fighting match. Clearly, Mike Tyson had no intention of this being a training exercise. His only intention when he entered the room was to cause me as much pain as possible. Paul continued by expressing his dissatisfaction and disappointment. I've committed myself fully to this sport, he said. I've trained non-stop, pushed myself to the brink, but after what transpired, I couldn't enter the ring with someone who so obviously doesn't care about his opponent's safety. The fighting community went crazy after hearing this news. Those who were hoping to see a fight between the famous boxer and the YouTuber were let down. Those who had always laughed at Paul's boxing credentials took advantage of this to make fun of him even more. But there were also many who agreed with Paul's choice. He received a lot of praise for putting his health and safety before the promise of a large salary. The event has sparked new debates regarding the morality of exhibition fights, especially when elderly boxers who might not be in optimal physical shape are competing. It remains to be seen if this is the final chapter in the Paul-Tyson saga. Although Paul did leave the door open for a potential future rematch in his social media statement, as long as more stringent safety precautions are put in place, it appears that the damage has already been done. With Paul suffering from a damaged ego and lacking confidence, Tyson's actions during the vicious sparring session have clouded the fight's outcome. In addition to calling off the bout and launching a legal offensive alongside a social media post expressing his displeasure, Jake Paul escalated the ramifications from the disturbing sparring video featuring Mike Tyson. Paul's group sued Tyson for $200 million, claiming that he had assaulted Paul. The litigation extended beyond the actual sparring match. Paul's legal team contended that Tyson entered the ring intending to cause serious physical harm rather than participate in a regulated training session, and that his actions were planned and malicious. The complaint used witness testimony and video evidence to bolster their allegations. An already volatile scenario became much more convoluted as a result of this judicial activity. It made it quite evident that Paul would not put up with Tyson's claimed abuse, and that he planned to pursue large financial damages for the trauma and reputational harm.
One more. Day 3. You still want to fuck with me?
After the sparring match with Jake Paul, Tyson was the target of harsh criticism and a sizable lawsuit. He eventually broke his silence in a video that was uploaded to his social media accounts. An obviously agitated Iron Mick took care of the matter. First, Hedden, Tyson spoke, his voice tinged with a barely subdued growl. Let's be clear about this. This was training for boxing, not ballet, and you have to respect the fucking sport. Then Tyson began to recount his account of what happened. He scoffed at this youngster named Jake Paul, who comes waltzing into the gym all haughty, talking shit and showing disrespect for the legends. He believes that boxing is a joke on YouTube. Guess what though? According to Tyson, it's not. He was driven to the brink by Paul's persistent clowning and rudeness toward him and his crew. He was trivializing everything. Tyson kept calling me names and imitating my movements. He exhibited some control when I ordered him to stop, but he persisted in pushing it. The sparring session itself, according to Tyson, naturally intensified. He explained that we began off mild, but that's when he grew confident and started throwing wild punches without any regard for technique. At that point, I had to demonstrate to him what occurs when someone plays around in the ring. After that, a montage of Tyson's biggest hits was inserted into the video. Thunderstorm swift knockouts and vicious combinations that seemed to be meant as a message for Paul. Perhaps Tyson came to the conclusion that a little taste would make him see sense. Boxing is a competitive sport that requires self-control, self-respect, and a strong desire to win. If you lack these qualities, you should avoid the ring. Reactions to Tyson's statement were not uniform. A few supporters came up to support him, praising him for correcting a young person who was being disrespectful. Some perceived it as a self-serving rationalization for needless acts of violence. Regardless of the public's opinion, the lawsuit they contended merely served to bolster the argument that Tyson acted out of rage, rather than a desire to teach Paul a lesson. Mike Tyson made one thing very evident: he had no regrets. He presented himself as the guardian of traditional boxing principles, not ready to put up with slights to the game or its icons. It remains to be seen if this story finds resonance with the larger audience or if it only stirs up more controversy.
The best boxer on the planet is?
Jake Paul.
I mean, if Mike Tyson says, let's do this, are you down?
100%.
Tyson's assertions Jake Paul took to social media, his normal venue, to intensify his attacks and double down on his charges. In a video that was leaked, Paul Unleashed expressed both fury and what some could describe as thinly veiled mocking. Mike Tyson Paul started out with a little smile on his lips. "I was demeaning the sport," he remarked. "Please give me a moment." He was showing BBC human dignity disdain. That's the only disrespect I witnessed. Paul went on to take Tyson's story and tear it apart, detail by detail. "I wasn't there to perform a comedy show, I was there to train. As for copying his move, perhaps if he still recalled good form himself, he wouldn't have become so agitated. He says I was clowning around." Paul was obviously trying to get under Tyson's already thick skin with his sarcastic remarks. Then he veered off course and into more contentious area. Paul spoke again, his tone growing serious. The man is obviously not healthy. He appears to be trapped in a fantasy of glory days, living in the past, and there are numerous indications of brain damage. While Paul had gained some support for his early stand against Tyson's alleged violence, this comment set off a controversy. His comment sparked new debates regarding the morality of taking advantage of someone else's possible health problems for one's own gain because it seemed harsh and insulting. Nevertheless, Paul was unfazed. He asked in a rhetorical manner, "He wants to talk about respect. When he started attacking me with full force, where was the respect for the game and his opponent? Since it's not a lesson or a tough love assault, let's just call it an assault." Paul, who might be a legend, reiterated in the video's conclusion that he intended to pursue the complaint. Paul came to the conclusion, but that doesn't mean he may behave incoherently. The goal of this litigation is to make a statement, particularly from someone who blatantly created his own version of the sport. Violence has no place in boxing. Paul's response was a well-thought-out gamble that brought him publicity and sustained the debate. It also ran the danger of offending some audience members who thought his remarks offensive. It remains to be seen if this tactic will succeed or if it will further establish him as the victim in this very public showdown. Clips. Jake. The back and forth between Paul and Mike Tyson grew more intense. Paul escalated the situation not just with his words but also with the lawsuit. Paul announced a change to the lawsuit's initial filing, which had sought $200 million for assault, during a news conference that was live-streamed on his channel. The new petition specifically mentioned violence as a primary reason for seeking damages. "It's not only about me in this," Paul asserted himself and added a hint of self-righteousness to his speech. Sending a message to those who believe boxing is a free-for-all is the goal of this. Respect is expected, regulations exist, and there's a very good reason for them. Paul went on to define hostility in this particular context. Mike Tyson shown his inability to restrain his aggression. He clarified that I was the unfortunate focus of his rage, which he was releasing rather than training. More information from the sparring session was provided in the amended lawsuit, and witness accounts supported Paul's allegations of using excessive force and showing total contempt for safety precautions. To capture Paul's physical and psychological injuries from the incident, medical records were also discussed. This could be referred to be a publicity stunt by others. Paul said that he had spoken to his detractors directly, but let me tell you, it's not glamorous to sue a legend, nor is it enjoyable to be abused in a boxing ring. I'm acting in this way because it's morally correct. Paul purposefully diverted attention from his initial charges of disrespect and crow around by focusing on his violence and portraying himself as the victim of uncontrollable rage. Paul wanted to appeal to a larger segment of the population, but there were dangers associated with this tactic. specializing on aggression minimized the possibility that Paul's actions contributed to the situation getting worse. Critics noted that going into a sparring match, a professional fighter needs to be ready for a particular degree of intensity. Concerns about the precedent the modified lawsuit could set and whether it would deter older boxers from competing in exhibition contests were also raised. All in all, would it dilute the raw spectacle that frequently pulls viewers to these non-competitive bouts regardless of the long-term ramifications, making coaches and promoters unduly cautious? There was no doubt about it. Jake Paul had evolved from a contentious YouTuber to a boxer, and now a legal advocate against unbridled violence in the ring. It was unclear if he would succeed in court or merely turn out to be a cunning self-promoter. But one thing was certain. The Mike Tyson vs. Jake Paul story would continue to dominate headlines and generate excitement in the boxing community.